I said. Are we going to go or what? She asked. Yeah, I muttered. It's just that. My words trailed off and became lost into my stark memory, and I began staring down the trail again. Sissy drew up close to my face. She was always doing stuff like that, invading people's personal space so she could make a point. So, here she was, staring into my eyes like a police officer questioning a suspect, and she says sort of offhandedly, I can't tell if you're lying or not anymore, she said. But, I think you did see something. There were times when. She was far too smart for her age and it made her sound all smart-alecky, but sometimes, like now, for instance, her big brain served her well. I eagerly responded with, I did, Sissy. Oh wow, I am so glad you are starting to believe me. She seemed to give me one final visual appraisal and, seemingly satisfied, she said, then let's go. This could be the greatest find ever. We could be famous. Yeah, I thought aloud, starting to remember what this was really all about. We could be rich and famous. Rich and famous. She echoed, raising her arms high into the air, a wistful, but determined quality in her voice. Then, after a moment we both looked at each other and said in unison, rich and famous. With that, we both headed to the beginning of the trail, side by side. But, at the start of the trail we both paused. I knew I, at least, was trying to steal up courage to go back down it. What if the thing I saw really does come back? What if it is dangerous? Well, we began walking down that trail anyways, and I just kept telling myself that this could make us rich. When I looked at her, she looked eager. I wasn't sure if I looked scared or not, but she mantraed in a low voice, rich and famous, a few times as if she had read my mind and knew I needed to be reminded of why we were doing this. Her gray eyes twinkled mischievously as she looked up at me. Rich and famous, I affirmed back, quietly. Nervously, I put my hands into my pockets then took them right back out again. We walked further down the trail. After a bit, I looked back to where the beginning of the trail and our home had been. Should we have told Mom about our plans? Nah, she wouldn't have let us go. Still, I began to think maybe she would have been right to not let us go. As I was still looking behind me, watching the matrix of the trail begin to get smaller and smaller, I suddenly remembered the time I broke the kitchen window with one of my dad's golf balls and his deep voice bellowed from the other room, what was that? I remembered that sense of dread I had then and realized this was starting to feel like that same thing all over again. Suddenly, there was a crunching sound and, as I turned to look in the direction of the sound, I ran right into Sissy, who had stepped in front of me and stopped while I was turned around and not watching where I was going. Oof. I said as I bumped into her, knocking her down. She glared at me like I was an idiot or something, then she stood back up and punched me in the shoulder. Watch where you're going, she instructed. Before I could respond, the sound, only this time much louder now, seemed to come all at once from everywhere around us. It sounded like the breaking of branches. Another sound, then a whole bunch of sounds. I moved all around in a tight circle, the sound seeming to explode everywhere around me. That sound, Sissy, where is it coming from? My ears were on full alert, like sonar trying to pick up the slightest nuance. What is that sound? Sissy echoed my concern in a perplexed voice, moving behind me for either shelter or because she wanted to make sure I was eaten first. Probably, it was a little bit of both. I don't know, I said, moving constantly in circles with Sissy now behind me, right on my heels the whole time. It seemed the sounds were getting much more frequent now. I wonder what is making that sound, I said. We started circling slower and then the sounds got steadily quieter until they nearly died out. Altogether. Wait a second, Sissy said. We stopped circling and I turned to face her. Was it this sound, you idiot? They all appeared to be broken. In my panic I hadn't even realized it had been us making the sounds by breaking branches. I felt my cheeks redden a little with embarrassment. I'm sorry, Sissy, but you just don't know what I saw earlier. It scared me so bad. In fact, I am wondering if this is even such a good idea anymore. She quickly responded, are you kidding? We could be famous. True, I said, and rich. I then forced a smile at her. Rich and famous. We both repeated in sync again, emboldened to resume our quest once more. But, as we began walking down the trail even further, I now wondered if, in all the racket we had just made, whether or not Bigfoot had heard us. Come on, let's go, Sissy said while pushing me in my back. Apparently, I wasn't going as fast as she would have liked. After another 15 minutes of walking or so, I began to recognize the area I had been in where I had my previous encounter. I was trembling a bit and goose pimples rose all along my arms. This is right where I heard it, I whispered. I studied the densely wooded area, and having spotted the exact place I had been at earlier, said while pointing a shaky finger, it was right over there. Sissy came up alongside me and we both stared for a few moments into what looked like the darkest, densest parts of the woods anywhere on the planet. Sissy, maybe we should go back home. This isn't such a good idea. Rich and famous, she said, while still staring into the woods. Sissy, seriously, I don't think that we, but to my shock Sissy had ignored me and went bounding off full speed towards the very spot in the woods where I had seen the creature. Sissy, don't. I shouted and went running after her. She was smaller than I, though, and had managed to make her way through some really thick trees and bushes and disappeared from sight. I did my best to get through the bushes too, but I was slower about it and cut and scratched up my arms something terrible. I finally saw her, standing stock still in a large clearing. The sun wasn't even visible anymore in this spot. It was so dark there that it may as well have been near evening. I got next to her and whispered, Sissy, we didn't even bring the camera. How are we going to prove anything? We should go back and get it right now. But she was not moving at all. Sissy, do you hear me? I said, shaking her shoulder. Do you smell that? She asked, still transfixed on some point further, deeper into the woods. We need to get back, I am telling you. We need, but then I smelled it too. It was rancid, like a rotting animal, but there was something else, almost like a musky scent. Then, there was a loud crash in the woods and a very heavy breaking of branches. It sounded just like what I had heard earlier. I grabbed her hand and we began to back up slowly, away from where the sound seemed to be coming from, and just as we backed into the dense bushes and were about to turn and make our way to the trail again, we saw it. A huge, black bear came out of the woods about 50 feet away and seemed to not pay much attention to us at first. Nice going, Brainiac. You saw a bear, not Bigfoot, she said. I just sighed. But then a tiny bear cub followed out from the woods and the cub started making its way towards us. The black bear now took an extreme interest and started charging straight at us, snarling. We quickly turned in a panic to climb through the bushes and trees, with the sound of the bear still coming after us. I had never moved so quickly in all my life, but bigger than Sissy or not, I held her hand tight and yanked us both through that foliage in seconds. We were running headlong towards the trail and we heard the bear come crashing through the forest behind us. It seemed to be getting closer and I didn't know what to do. We weren't going to make it. I don't know why, but that's when I craned my head around to look for it and saw it was less than 20 feet away. I screamed, then Sissy screamed and she started looking back too, both of us not knowing what else to do. So, we just kept futilely running like that, watching that bear gain on us very quickly. Sissy had turned to face the front again and then I heard, Buddy, watch out. And as I turned to face the trail again too, we both ran into something huge, soft, furry, and yet seemingly immovable that knocked us down onto our butts. It was the largest creature I had ever seen, and that pungent smell was now everywhere. It was him. The bear was upon us, its roaring mouth upside down over our faces, but all we could do was look back at this other shaggy, giant thing, standing on two legs above us. That's the last thing I remember, because everything then went very black. I smelled dirt and still that terrible odor when I first opened my eyes. I blinked and saw the blue sky above me. I was on my back, but where was I? I sat up but winced because I was sore all over. Sissy was lying beside me, and I became very worried, so I reached out to shake her. She stirred and then quickly opened her eyes and started screaming. Help! Help us, help! She yelled, jumping onto her feet really fast, her usual fearlessness now replaced by dread. Sissy! I said in a soothing voice to calm her down, it's okay. We're okay. That's when we both seemed to realize simultaneously that we were back at the beginning of the trail. Our house was just a few feet away. Mom yelled out the kitchen window, is everything okay? Buddy, are you torturing your sister again? We're fine, Mom. I yelled back. We're just playing. Well, play nice and stop yelling. She called. I faced Sissy, who was still a bit wild-eyed. What was that thing, buddy? It was him, I muttered, looking back down the trail. Bigfoot? She asked. Yeah, I think so. That must have been him. What happened to the bear? I thought we were goners for sure. And, how did we get back here to home? I don't know, I said, but then I saw the largest human-like tracks I had ever seen in my life by my feet. I turned around, and there, in the dirt, were several of them. Sissy, I think he brought us home. I think Bigfoot saved us. She followed my gaze and saw the tracks too. I'm going to get the camera and take pictures of the tracks, buddy. We can still be famous. But as she turned to run away, I grabbed her shoulder. No, Sissy, I have another idea. I started erasing the tracks by rubbing my feet all around in the dirt. Hey, what are you doing? Are you crazy? She yelled. No, I'm not crazy. I just realized I don't want people to come after him. Once they see those photos, people from everywhere will come looking for him. He saved us, and we owe our lives to him. She seemed to think about this for a moment. Forget rich and famous? She asked. Forget rich and famous, I nodded in agreement. Let's just be grateful we are alive.